Hey everybody, welcome to Pealed Back's LiveCast Conversations with. As always, I'm your host, Coach Gene, and this is episode 80. And on episode 80 today, we have my friend Anjali Inman. Sorry, got
No
too
problem.
fast. So Anjali is the CEO of EstateBox, a digital life and legacy planning platform. She used her vast knowledge and 15 years of experience in tech to build the EstateBox platform on principles of privacy, security, and innovation. Anjali has created a workplace that prioritizes diversity, equality, inclusion, and belonging. The same principles also have been built into the EstateBox platform, ensuring that everyone can see themselves reflected in the life and the legacy planning journey. Anjali, thank you so much for being on my show, and those words do not do you even half of justice.
You're too kind, Gene. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm glad that we finally got you on. It's been a long time in the making. So let's talk a little bit about your journey. So you're the CEO of EstateBox. Let's talk about getting to that point.
Sure, where to start, Gene?
Well, you tell me at the best place to get started at. What was like
Um,
what? Well, let's talk about what brought you to the idea of building a EstateBox, because it's in the world of flashy tech. This is a little bit more less flash, but a lot more substance.
yeah, it's definitely less flashy. My family and I moved from Calgary to Kelowna a number of years ago, and at that time we redid our wills, which you should do when you move provinces. And at that time, the law firm that did our wills gave us a 40-page handwritten document we had to fill out with all our assets and sort of all about us. And I remember at that time thinking, as a tech lawyer, this is ridiculous. Like, there's got to be an easier way. And who writes on paper anymore?
Yeah.
That was probably, back in the day when most people didn't know what Zoom was or G Drive, and that was foreign to lots of people. And then flash forward probably about 3 years, and I've had two babies. I'm just returning to work after a second mat leave. I've gone through a bunch of different jobs working in fintech, in blockchain with you, in AI companies. And I get diagnosed with breast cancer just as I'm like 2 months back to work. And it occurred to me that I'm pretty organized and I have all our family documents in places that make sense to me, but I don't really have a good place to share those with my family, with my husband.
Right.
And so, couple that with this realization that there's really no tech solution to this 40-page handbook we had to complete. So I looked for a platform that might have this, and at the time I didn't see any. EstateBox has since come out, and there are some competitors too. And so what EstateBox is really a place to keep all your key details and documents in a secure location that you can share with your family members or your advisors, whether that's your lawyer or your insurance broker or your financial advisor. And then you're not filling out 40 pages of paper for each advisor.
Yeah. Well, and now all of a sudden you're reducing the paper trail and everything else. It's all in one spot. I love the simplicity of it, seeing that there's an issue, and you as a lawyer going, really, are we still doing it this way? This seems crazy. And now you're able to have all this documentation in one place, because it's pretty important documentation to be having around.
Right. And I'm responsible for that in our relationship, which isn't to say that my husband couldn't do it, but in the division of labor, we all have our roles, right?
Yeah.
And being able to share that with your loved ones is important.
Yeah. So this kind of came back all out from, but like, you got the first kernel from when you moved here to BC, and then you had your, you went through breast cancer, and you're a survivor of that as well, to go, I think we could do this better. And then out of all that craziness, you were like, you know what I should do? I should start a startup.
I think my husband would agree with you. It's
Yes, it is. Like, so what drove, like, in the middle of all that? Where did you get this inspiration, like this fuel, to drive through and add that to you work with Wealthsimple, and as well you're a mom, a wife, and all these other things within the community. And you're like, I think I got space for this while I'm dealing with a life-threatening challenge as well.
Yeah, so a few things. I think that I was off work when I was going through treatment, and I think I was kind of bored. So um, I'm used to having a lot on my plate, and I think
Yeah.
it was boring. So I would sit watching endless hours of TV with my laptop on my lap, doing wireframes of this idea I had in my mind. Because I'm fairly, well, maybe not fairly, I'm quite conservative. And so I didn't really think that I could explain to anyone what I wanted to build unless I could create what I wanted to build in wireframes. And so I spent so many hours up in our playroom on the couch, pretending to watch TV, but really building out the wireframes
Yeah.
for EstateBox. And what was fun is one of our former colleagues, Sarah, put me onto some really awesome tools that just perked me right up, and they were really fun to learn how to
Right.
wireframe, right?
So it kind of gave you like this. You had a purpose while in all of this to keep you moving forward through cancer treatment and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very welcome distraction, and it's one I'm passionate about, but it really did just give me something to do.
Yeah, and that there's the component of like, oh, am I passionate about this, or is it just something to like keep your mind busy? And it kind of ends up being both of those things.
Yeah, I mean, not often in life are we blessed with space to really just think and sit and build, and so I'd like to think I really took advantage of that.
Yeah, from like, because it could have been so easy for some people to be like sit around, be like, I guess I'm gonna watch TV, and that's okay. I'm gonna be bored while I'm going through this. But to hear like and have worked with you and known you, be like, you are a person who does like having a lot of Herculean things to do. It's incredible the amount of lift you can have, and the fact that you took this on and to still do it is like, that in itself is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is, but I am also super blessed that I have such great employees. I mean, they make my job really easy. I don't have to do very much. I have great
Yeah.
people working for me that have learned a lot, and I take a lot of pride in like helping them along. Um, but that also makes it easy. That's how I'm able to work full time at Wealthsimple
Well,
as well.
well, I think it's interesting that you're able to do that, right? Because like some like that you have employees, because that's not necessarily an easy jump for anybody that's starting a business. Is to be like, sometimes you get stuck in that solopreneur world for quite some time. What was the kind of like moment where you're like, oh, I need help, or I'm going to take the risk to bring some help in? Because at the start, revenue and funding and everything else is not always easy when you're just getting started.
Yeah, good question. So I'm self-funded. So money is always top of mind, but I didn't really see the staff I brought on as a big risk. I mean, at the time when I brought them on, I was probably working about 10 hours a week for Wealthsimple, and I've ramped up from there. But it's really my EstateBox staff that allows me to be able to do that. Um, and I don't think I was ever meant to be a solopreneur. I learned how to do all the things, and then I handed it off, like payroll and taxes and bookkeeping, and then I just gave it to someone else so they could learn how to do it as well, and honestly help me out.
Yeah.
My staff is probably laughing if they're watching this.
Well, was there a moment though that you like, as you've grown, like obviously there's a tech team behind all of this. You've mentioned bookkeeper and stuff. What does that staff makeup look like, and how do you utilize them? Because I think sometimes that could be like the biggest support for some people, is to like, how do I know when to hand something off so I can keep doing the good stuff?
Yeah, I guess it would be more interesting to me to hear my staff answer that question.
Ooh.
When do I hand things off, and how do they feel about it? But for example, one of my employees is a relatively recent grad, probably 2 years out of her undergrad, and she does my bookkeeping now. So I got her trained in QuickBooks and basically handed everything off to her. And she does it under the supervision of a contract CFO. But I sort of, with everything I hand off, take the approach that my staff is far more talented than I actually know. And I'd rather see them try and fail than always assume that I know what they're capable of. And
Ooh,
that's even really shown up in, sorry, I think I cut you off there, Gene. Um,
no.
I invited one of my staff to a meeting, and I basically let her talk through the whole thing. And I told her after, I was so impressed with her presence and her well spokenness. And even in reviews, I said, give me more chances to see how good you are, because I will give you more.
That's like that right there is a powerful moment for anybody to be to a the first one is that you're opening the door for them to redefine what a failure means in the workplace. It's like step up, have an opportunity to explore this, grow, because I know you have so much potential behind you. We're just going to open the door so you can learn how to utilize all that potential, and then just to be like to open that invitation. It's like you impressed me. Now I want like give me more invitations to let you do what you just did. Like that doesn't happen every day. We've worked in together. We know that doesn't happen
Yeah.
every day, right?
I don't know what to say. I kind of think it's the only way to lead, though.
Hmm.
One of my employees, I know she has aspirations to run her business one day, and that's the employee who does my bookkeeping now. And so a lot of the things I give her, I give to her with that in mind. Like bookkeeping is a skill she's going to need if she wants to run her own business. So she's young, but that doesn't mean
Yeah,
she's not capable. But why not learn now? Why not learn when it helps me too, right? It frees up my time to do other things. And
yeah.
she gains a valuable skill that she'll carry the rest of her career.
That's man, like you've just defined what it means to be a leader in a nutshell, right? Like you're looking at this person who you brought on. She's got shared obviously aspirations for what her future is going to look like. And instead of coming from like a place of scarcity, you're like, great, this is an abundance opportunity for me and for you. You're going to need to know some of these things because guess what? They're going to show up regardless. If you're going to start a business, you're going to have to know how to bookkeep. You're going to have to know all these other steps that are actually like really mundane things in the business running back office. You'd be like, go learn it now. And at some point she's going to graduate from that and go have the opportunity to build her own business. And then what an opportunity to watch her continue to shine. That's a
Well,
leader.
exactly. And isn't that sort of the legacy that you leave in others?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, one of the things I do with a lot of people who have worked for me over the years is ask them a number of questions. And so it's sort of like, where do you want to be in a year? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And where do you want to be in 10 to 15? And it's not only limited to what you want out of your career, but what do you actually want your life to look like? Because we're at an age where we have kids and spouses, but that wasn't always the case. And maybe for some
Yeah.
people, that is an actual goal they want to achieve. And, you know, trying to balance work and life is complicated enough. But if you can sort of outline those goals with your employees of what they want their future to look like, you can support them in all those things, right?
What a That's incredible. And obviously, I'm gonna make a wild assumption that your team responds very well to that and continues to
Well,
show up to open up invitations.
I have a very diverse group of people working for me, and sometimes I do think some of them think I'm a little wacky. Like I would probably be the first person to ask them what they wanted their life, not only career, to look like in
Yeah.
15 years. Um, but I do want to give them the skills that they need to get there. And definitely, I do not have all the answers on how to manage work-life balance,
Yeah.
but I can share like my failures and my successes, and help them understand what they're going to have to navigate through to maybe, and especially like with my work with junior lawyers, that work-life balance is very big thing.
Mm. Oh, big time, right? Like, and that's that thing that can become it. I think this work life balance is like it, balance in itself is such like a difficult thing, and it sets this bar that everything has to be equal. I think there's a realization that everything has a season, and not all seasons last forever, and to understand when you need to pop up, high in the family or high at work, and that it's going to impact the energy that goes around everywhere else. But to know that this is this component of cycling through it, so that you're not completely that you're not depleted, period, and that you're able to still to show up and still to grow regardless of the season you may be in.
Yeah, there's a phrase, right? Like you can't have it all, but I prefer that you can't have it all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a that's a
I don't know
great
where
way
it
to
came
think
from.
of
It's not
that.
mine, so don't give
Well,
me the
that
credit.
but you're sharing it and living to it, right? Like, and that I think there's a, it's that whole like have your cake and eat it too. Be like, well, you can't have it all right now. You have to make choices, and but you can have it all over a course of time. Are you willing to be patient? Are you willing to do the work over that time to know that you may have what you thought was the all today is going to be wildly different a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
And part of it too is just knowing what you actually do want. I think so many people haven't really sat down and thought through what they want both from their personal lives and their careers and what success
Yeah.
really does mean to them.
What has that meant to you over the last like 5 years? Saying what is it that I want, and how's that changed for you?
Oh, that's a tough one. Um, I think, like, primarily, I have two little people in my life. Sometimes they're little monsters, but nonetheless,
we,
I think my like success for me is primarily making them into good, um, genuine, decent human beings.
yeah,
And everything else sort of follows that. But I do like my legal career. Um, I like my entrepreneurial career. Um, I don't know that I have a good answer as to
that's all
what
right.
success means.
Well, it's not even just about like what success means. I think it comes more about around the lines of like you were talking about. Sometimes we're not very good about asking for what we want because we're not very good about like defining it for ourselves. So, how has defining what you want played a role in your life, and has what you wanted change? Like, yes, what you've wanted has changed, but like how you go about like defining that, has that changed over the last 5 years for you?
Yeah, so I think back to the time we worked together, and I think as a lawyer with a legal but also business role, um, you know, we went through a lot of stuff that I don't think I would put up with now. And I think really one of the gifts that cancer gave me um, was forcing me to pull back from work and drawing really great boundaries, both in amount of time I'm willing to give to my work and um, what I'm willing to do with my time, really.
So it's taught you now through those experiences what's important to you and how you're going to show up for what's actually important and protect those things a little bit more, right? Like, uh, I hear boundaries, and everybody talks about boundaries and having them. And the interesting part, metaphor that I've heard recently is like, think of boundaries as like that club, and you got the bouncer at the front of the club. It's a popular club. Somebody comes up to it and goes, "Hey, there's a door charge. You got to pay." "I'm not willing to pay." The bouncer says, "On your way." Are you going to sit around and complain about somebody who's not willing to pay the price to come on into your club? Or are you going to want all the people that are willing to be there, pay the price, and enjoy it?
That is a good a good analogy. I mean, I think everyone sort of gets better at boundaries as they progress in their career,
Yeah.
and like we're not the same people we were a year ago, or even five,
No.
obviously not 5 years ago. Um, but yeah, who you let into that club becomes more and more important.
Yeah, I think there's a component like that's that environmental piece to it for like for who we have around us and what we decide to have around us does impact how we show up and how we do everything else. And that's really interesting to hear that over the course of the years, like you've learned what that work-life balance means. You've learned what you're going to say hell yes to by the sounds of it for family and life and your other endeavors, which also means that you have, I assume, a much better ability to say no to the things that don't fit that now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what I say no to, but because I do think my plate is quite full. Um, but that's why sort of my migration to full-time work with Wealthsimple was so slow, is because I needed those boundaries and I was pretty firm on them.
Mm. And they obviously went, we will wait for you to go whatever pace you need to come back on full time.
I work for a great theater. That's yeah.
What was that process for you to it, just even in that example to go, okay, here's where I'm going to start and I will let you know when I'm ready to change that. What was that experience for you?
Well, it's sort of, I suppose, like, I need to tell this story a bit. So when you and I worked together in blockchain, we had our external counsel
Yeah.
at a firm in out of Toronto, and he went on to become the general counsel of Wealthsimple. And him and I worked together. And he reached out. Well, actually, he snooped me one day on LinkedIn, and I called him out on it and said, "Hey, I see you there. How are you? How's the new gig?" Because I mean,
Yeah.
it's a very significant career change for someone to leave a partnership at a law firm and go in house. Especially, I think in the area he did, the area he practiced when he was in private practice. And he said, "Well, I'm looking for someone with a skill set like yours, and I just like I'm not having luck, and I don't know where to find people like you." And I didn't really know what people like me meant. But when I think about my career, like I've had some short stints at startups. I've shut down startups. I've left startups. I've been asked to leave startups, and I've worked in all different kinds of areas, all like all the exciting areas,
Yeah.
fintech, blockchain, and AI. Um, and like I don't know who else has had such a sort of colored career path. So I didn't really know how to answer him. And then we were just chatting, and he said, "Well, COVID had just kind of kicked in."
Yeah.
And he said, "It's changed the way I think about hiring people." He was maybe more Toronto centric in terms of candidates at that time. And he said, "Well, do you think you would work for me?" And I was like, "Well, hold on. I'm a cancer patient and I just started this new company. Um, so I don't think so." He said, "Well, are you sure?" And he's a nice guy, and
Yeah.
I like working with him. So I said, "Okay, I'll give you like 10 hours a week, but here, like, you have to know I am a cancer patient. I literally don't know if I'm going to spend all day tomorrow puking," which didn't really happen to me through my
Yeah.
treatments, but I didn't know what my future really held. And then slowly but surely, as treatments ended, I started to ramp up.
Right. And that was the choice that you got to bring it into it, going, oh, I don't know if this is the thing to go on my plate. Like, okay, let's do a little bit, dipping the toe in, and then obviously you found something that you really enjoyed to add on to an already full plate. So you made your plate bigger by the sounds of it.
I think so, but maybe the plate was always the same size, but the team I work with now at Wealthsimple is phenomenal. And if it was just like a normal lawyer or contract gig, and I was reviewing contracts and just whatever kind of work, it wouldn't be so fulfilling. But the project I was really hired to work on when I started, I worked with two phenomenal people, and I had never worked in a workplace where everyone I met just amazed me with their intelligence and their passion. And like Wealthsimple does a phenomenal job of hiring talented people, and that's why I wanted to be there, why I wanted to ramp up, right?
Well, yeah, and it goes back to that environment. Is like you met incredible people, and there's always something about the team, right? Like no matter sometimes external the external circumstances for why a company is successful or not, like, but when you find that team that you're just like, these people are great people and I will go through hell with them just for the experience. Like there's something cool about that. Like you're just like, oh, almost like I'm home. I know where my people are.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how I feel in both of the things that I do.
Yeah.
I have great people around me.
So the big lesson is surround yourself with great people.
Yeah, pretty much.
There it is, mic
Pretty
drop.
much.
That's
Are
all
we
we'll
done?
go after that. You're not free yet. So between all that, so you're running the startup and doing this full time. How do you find the balance? You know, the harmony, I guess, more than anything between those two, because they're those are big commitments, just the two of them.
They are. I get a lot of sleep, so I think I'm very present and awake in my working hours.
Yeah.
I spend a little bit of time each day with my EstateBox team, not directly, but managing the work that they're going to do. And that
Right.
is basically my job. And that's all I do for EstateBox. And so we make great use of all the planning platforms, some of which I learned about from you, like Trello and Jira, all those things. And they all keep priority documents. And so we both share the document, and I can go in at any time and rearrange sort of their priorities. And so I think we found a really good way of communicating asynchronously without having
Mm.
to be on together all the time to know what needs to be done.
Right. So you're able to understand where the priorities are, and you because you've hired well, and you've given these people these opportunities to step up, you can kind of like it's almost like you don't need to grip the reins so tight like some may think you have to. Is you can say, here's the vision, everybody goes out to it, and you just kind of get out of great people's way to let them go do great things.
I'd like to think that's what I'm doing. Like I said, you probably need to ask my team. But that like that's the only way my life works is to
Yeah.
let them show up as they best can, and then I'm there to support too. But I couldn't do EstateBox without my team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you talked about this priority documentation. Can you share a little bit about that? Because maybe that's going to be something that can help another leader who's watching us today.
Oh goodness, it's really simple. So it's just a shared document, and it's labeled priorities, and they're numbered. And there's a section, the employee's name is at the top, and then there's a section for me below that. So maybe employee
Yeah.
has items 1 to 5 they need to do. And then once they do something, they move it below to my section, and then I know it's my turn. They
Right.
punted it back to me, and then we just keep a list at the bottom of all the items that are done. So once it's fully done, we just cross it out in text and just keep it at the bottom of the page. And one of the things I think we all find really helpful is we link our Trello cards or our wireframes right into that document, so you can always find all the items that this task is referring to.
Right. Well, okay,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
I think if
And
anything, oh,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was going
Uh,
to say, I think if anything, my team like over communicates with all these tools. Like often we'll put a comment in Slack and on the priorities document and in a Trello card. But it's great when you're doing it async because no one misses anything, and then the records are
Right.
there too. It's
Yeah.
not
And it
this document's not rocket science, though.
no, but like sometimes it's like you can't see the simple things because you're in the middle of it, right? Like was this something that came because you were like, we need a priorities list, or is this something that came through some like challenging moments and experiences of growing to being able to have this real asynchronous experience with the team?
I think it's probably both. So we have like a regular rotation of students that we hire on, and so they need a little bit more guidance, I think, than my full-time employees as to what they should be working on. And they need the tools to keep themselves organized as well. So it's born partially out of that. And then I think because we work asynchronously, I might change my mind on what I think is a priority. And so me having the ability to rearrange their priorities means anytime they go in to see what is next, um, they can see if I've reorganized things. And
Right.
again, that comes in more for the students, I think, because part of the way we've gotten so far ahead is we have things in dev right now that we finished 8 months ago. And that's because students were able to carry that work along last summer, or even before that. And so some of the things they're working on just need to get done, but there's no priority on them, really.
Right.
So then when a priority comes up, a real priority, I can put that in front of other work.
Okay, so it's just about having this very, sounds like there's a really not only an open communication, a bit of transparency about where you as the visionary of the company want to take it, and then the operations team is able to have this great conversation with you, going, okay, this is how we want to see it moving forward.
Yeah, yes, I think so. And there's a lot of things that even I don't know that my team does. And for example, I jumped into a meeting between two of them yesterday because I also had to talk to both of them about something, and they had this great workflow on the shared screen, and I was like, "Wow, guys, what's this? This looks really great." And they explained to me, and I'm like, I had no idea we even had that work done. So it's great. Like they really just do what needs to be done for me.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
take the reins and are building supporting structures within the business, which makes it a business, makes everybody else's life a whole lot easier. Because if you're flipping through, intern students on a regular basis, be like they kind of have to have like it can't be just like all trapped up in somebody's head.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I've done is I've hired people that I've worked with before. So
Mm.
one of our former colleagues is one of my UX designers from another tech company. I got my contract CFO. She used to be my boss.
Yeah.
Um, and some marketing people work for me as well. And so, um, I know you're going to ask me what my piece of advice is at the end, but it's kind of fitting here. Can I give it?
Let's do it, right?
Okay, so I would say, cherish your network and develop and maintain those relationships. And that's something that nobody told me when I was younger, but you never know when the people you've worked with or anyone in your life is gonna come back up and be valuable to you, a connection that you need. And I'd say, in the last few years working in Kelowna, I've met so many phenomenal people. And, that's part of what's made EstateBox so great today is I have hired people that I knew and I trusted. And I've worked with them before, and I know that they can get things done for EstateBox.
Yeah.
So really like just value your network.
Was there a point in time? So, hey, you're the first person who's ever jumped the gun on that. So, episode 80, we get this new milestone. But I love that idea of like just cherish your network, because you just never know when your paths are going to cross, or there's going to be that alignment again, right? Like, I think everything you've shared today really comes down to this openness of trust. You seem to be a person that gives trust first versus the old style. Be like, you got to earn my trust, right? Like you're giving trust, and then what happens is like just this ability to crush it without being afraid of it. So around the cherishing your network, how's that opinion of cherishing your network changed, or is this something that's always kind of been ingrained in you?
I don't think it's always been ingrained. I think it's something I learned, and it probably showed up most when I started EstateBox. My VP of marketing worked in large enterprises in Toronto, and she has a lot of contacts. And so she was putting me in touch with people she hadn't worked for years, so I could tell them about EstateBox. And then those people would put me in touch with people they knew for
Yeah.
me to tell them about EstateBox. And so it's cherish your network, but like recognize the value of that multiplying, right? And even EstateBox participated in an incubator probably about a year and a half ago, and we had this super awesome sales mentor, and he and I still connect. He had like a certain number of hours through the program, but him and I still connect. And he happened to work in an area tangential to where EstateBox sort of plays, and he too put me in contact with like chief technology officers, chief innovation officers at banks and credit unions. And they were just people he knew in the past and had a great relationship with that he could call up, 5 years later and say, hey, I've got this CEO I think you should meet.
Yeah, that's
So
really cool.
I probably say that because I've been the recipient of other people's great networks.
Yeah,
But I also hired people from my network to help me
right.
out, right?
So you've seen the value, but like not only is it like this cherished because you never know who they know, right? So if you've got 100 great people in your network and you're working with great people, chances are they as well have not burnt their bridges and have another 100 great people, and just this multiplier effect of opening doors and making conversations happen, which you wouldn't be able to do on your own.
Yeah. And even me getting my job at Simple, that was just through network, right? Like
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that that would be the case. I'd be working for a large company out of Toronto, based on our shared experience, right?
Yeah. That's it's you just never know, and there's always that old saying, it's like who you know and not what you know, but there's a lot of power in who you know, right? Because if you know people and they like and they can trust you, well, it's probably because you do the right things already. So that's cool to get to explore the piece of advice to your younger self prior to
A
getting
little in
out of
advance.
one of these episodes. Yeah. Well, it's usually the nice thing about it that I'm realizing that maybe we'll change up the format a little bit is because we got to explore it. Whereas in other times people drop it and then we move on. So that's very cool. So what's next for you, Anjali?
Oh goodness, I don't know. I don't. What's next for me? I don't know. I have to build a great company.
Yeah. And now it's just taking it and taking that to the next level, obviously, and then finding your harmony with all your other roles and everything else that you've got on your plate.
Yeah.
Well, we are getting to the end. Like I said, we were going to near that 40-minute mark, so we don't have the question because we've already went through it. But is there anything you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap up this episode?
Well, nothing in particular, but feel free, of course, to follow EstateBox on all the socials.
Perfect. And as well, I believe must have been one of your assistants shared that there's a link that I'm going to drop down for a 60-day free trial for EstateBox to experience a simplified approach to legacy planning. You want to talk
Yeah.
a little bit about that?
Sure. We just implemented a 60-day free trial on our platform, so anyone can go and check out what life and legacy planning is about. And you don't need to enter your credit card or need a promo code. You can just jump in and explore.
Perfect. And this is for this. This isn't just for the people that are in business or anything else. This should be for like everybody should be thinking about going in and having their ducks in an order because you just never know when it's going to be needed.
Yeah, well, look at me. I wasn't supposed to get a diagnosis. And yeah, you never know when you could
Yeah.
get hit by a bus or when your time's up. So yeah, I like to think of it as a gift that you can give the people you're leaving behind, and that sort of the legacy that you might want to leave for your loved ones.
Right, because I'm sure we've all seen some of those uglier situations where it's a mess when somebody passes unexpectedly, and that's not so much of a gift for those that are left behind. So this is an opportunity to allow them to have their point of grieving without like this all the stress of chasing everything down.
Yeah, exactly. And I am actually just reading this book called The Well Lived Life. It's right beside me, and one of the stories in it, a woman is talking about her father passing away, and he had kind of organized everything. And she said, she loved her father and they had a great relationship, but she felt so much more love for him because he had left things in order for her to manage, as opposed to feeling annoyed or angry at your deceased parent because they left you a mess.
Yeah. Oh, I could feel that and understand that for sure. Very excellent. And then as well, there's one thing about embracing aging webinar.
Oh, yes, on March 21st from 12 to 1, I think. It might be 11 to 12. I'll have to check. I'm presenting on the importance of planning for your digital assets in your planning process. And digital assets are anything really that you have a username and a password for. So we tend to think of those as like our social accounts or our emails, but it might be like your Wealthsimple account as well. And those are creating more problems for executors because they're harder to find.
And then trying to track them down, sometimes it can be a bit of a nightmare trying to get those things switched out.
Right, and because people don't have office drawers full of paper that you go through, you don't necessarily get mail to your home from all these platforms. It's hard for people to know that they exist. And there's some neat stories about people with large crypto holdings, and people can't find them, or they can't access them, right? So you want to plan around things like that.
You misplace one of those keys, and next thing you know, you're out a whole bunch of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so anybody can sign. I got to point the right way. Anybody can sign up for that. That's in the comments down below. So definitely sign up to learn a little bit about what it means to embrace the aging in this digital world with all of our digital products.
Thanks,
All right, Anjali. Is there anything else? Because we already know what that, when we jump into our time machine, it's going to be to cherish those networks. Is there anything else before I let you go?
No other words of wisdom. You got it all.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on episode 80 with me today. This has been great conversation to catch up with you and to hear a little bit more about your story and to get to know you a little bit deeper.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Gene.
You're very welcome. All right, and for everybody else, thank you very much for watching episode 80 of the LiveCast Conversations With. I'm Coach Gene, and until next week, go cherish your networks.